Hi, I'm natekokernot. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about one very important difference, which A Course in Miracles points out in Chapter 6, Section 7, between the laws of God and the laws of the ego. I want to preface what I'm going to say with a reminder that a miracle can also be conceived of as a situation in which the laws of God have overruled the laws of this world. Here's a quote from Chapter 5 that fleshes this out brilliantly. Quote, "What you do not understand is that two voices speak for different interpretations of the same thing simultaneously, or almost simultaneously, for the ego always speaks first. Alternate interpretations are unnecessary until the first one has been made, and speaking itself was unnecessary before the ego was made. The ego speaks in judgment, and the Holy Spirit reverses its decisions, much as a Supreme Court has the power to reverse a lower court's decisions about the laws of this world." End quote. If you understand the difference between the love and fear mindsets, you also understand the main difference between spiritual thinking and materialistic thinking. To start with, let's look at what the body is for, according to both the ego and the Holy Spirit. Quote, "The ego uses the body for attack, for pleasure, and for pride. The insanity of this perception makes it a fearful one. The Holy Spirit sees the body only as a means of communication, and because communicating is sharing, it becomes communion. You might argue that fear as well as love can be communicated, and therefore can be shared, but this is not so real as it sounds. Those who communicate fear are promoting attack, and attack always breaks communication, and therefore makes communion impossible." End quote. So this passage clearly indicates that the ego in part conceives of the body as a getting machine. In the materialistic sense, of course, it is about getting resources, and with this mindset, the understanding of evolution as some sort of vicious competition makes sense. The philosophy of eugenics, which sees evolution really as the survival of the fittest, is how the ego sees nature's laws. Any ecologist knows that nature itself is actually working within a framework of collaboration, that symbiosis, or mutual benefit through collaboration, is actually how nature itself is thriving when left alone. But if seen through the eyes of the ego, a set of eyes that sees itself as separate from everything, it can look like a competition between species, because that is what the ego values, conflict and competition. You see, the currency itself is different with the laws of God than with the laws of the ego. The currency which the laws of God values are concepts and ideas, and more specifically, concepts and ideas that are true. As that passage indicates, the Holy Spirit sees the body's usefulness only as a communication device, and love is the concept that it is here to communicate, because love itself is true and fear is not. So like that passage says, fear cannot be shared according to the laws of God. Now here's the really huge difference in terms of outcomes achieved through these different ways of seeing. With the ego's concept of giving and getting, the zero-sum gain logic of materialism applies. When you give something away, you have lost it, because obviously the other person is now in possession of the thing that you once had. With the currency of ideas that the Holy Spirit is trading in on its stock exchange, you keep all that you give. So just to round this out, according to the logic of the Holy Spirit, if you give love, you keep the love you give. And if you give fear, you keep the fear you give. And just to throw in an analogy from hip-hop culture, because I do like connecting dots from different realms, Tupac Shakur's concept of thug, which stands for the hate you give, fits very nicely into this lesson, as Tupac himself realized with this philosophy that you keep the hate you give. If we all look honestly at what it feels like to hate someone, we know that this is true. This really gets at how we can understand the ego and the Holy Spirit as two completely opposing thought systems, of logic, and it explains why, if you want to align yourself with God's will, and if you want to enjoy all of the abundance of love and peace and joy, then you give all to all, because with God's laws you keep what you give away. In heaven, infinite abundance is the law of the land, while on earth, where we placed ourselves after the separation, the law of scarcity is far more apparent. With these two opposing thought systems both contained within us humans, we can understand why we have internal conflict. One guide, the Holy Spirit, is telling us that to have we must give all to all, and the other guide, the ego, is telling us to lock our doors and stuff our money in bank vaults so no one can take it from us. And since the law of perception is that the perception is projection, we can understand why so much conflict appears to exist in this external world, because we have projected our inner conflict onto the external world. It is all because we are so deeply confused about who we are, and that is what A Course in Miracles is trying to correct. Here's a beautiful passage from the section, The Lessons of the Holy Spirit, which precedes the section named To Have, Give All to All. Quote, "When your body and your ego and your dreams are gone, you will know that you will last forever. Many think that this is accomplished through death, but nothing is accomplished through death, because death is nothing. Everything is accomplished through life, and life is of the mind and in the mind. The body neither lives nor dies, because it cannot contain you who are life. If we share the same mind, you can overcome death, because I did. Death is an attempt to resolve conflict by not willing at all. Like any other impossible solution which the ego attempts, it will not work." End quote. It's not that often that I talk politics on this channel, but if you're paying attention to the fact, to that realm, the fact that a democratic socialist just became the mayor of the city which can arguably be called the financial capital of this country, if not the world, is a pretty good sign that we're beginning to get this idea, and that the paradigm shift, which just about all A Course in Miracles students and most other spiritual thinkers as well are seeing through the apparent chaos of recent times, well, it's clearly underway. The paradigm shift that our collective mind is experiencing right now is a shift away from trusting in fear towards trusting in love. And if you accept another one of God's laws, that everything that happens is happening by you and for your benefit, even though it may not be that apparent to you, if you are in possession of that faith and you give that away through teaching it, you might begin to understand that even recent events have all been for the greater good. Sometimes we need to go pretty far in the wrong direction before we understand what the right direction is and make a turn in that direction. And personally, I believe that's what these periods of chaos and crisis are for. So I'll be interested to hear your comments on this one, since I don't usually cross over into political bias here. I have to say that capitalism, which is purely based on getting in the zero-sum gain kind of way, leads to a pursuit of happiness that, at least on a psychological level, only leads to guilt or resentment for everyone. Resentment for the have-nots, and guilt and fear for the haves. Nobody can be truly joyful in a world that is set up like that. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that these ideas can be extended further with the algorithm's help. Like I've said before, fear is evidently trending these days, and if we want to turn that around, messages that promote love are what we all need to hear more of. I hope your day is filled with blessings and miracles, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.